Sirianni, so get this. This is how good he's been. You've kind of seen this one, right? Highest win percentage, minimum 20 games. Since Sirianni joined the Eagles, so we've only gotten, obviously, Kansas City and Reed.
That used to have Doug McDermott on it, but you shortened it to 2 people because you don't think he's a good Sean McDermott.
Yeah,
because you don't think he's a good coach.
And he is a good coach.
Yeah,
that wouldn't have been bad.
But here's the graphic that you might have to adjust your screens. Highest win percentage since Vince Lombardi left the Packers. It's John Madden at 739, and then Sirianni at 701. So are you ready to call him elite, since he's basically John Madden?
Yes. How can we not call him elite?
This is the weird part of it.
Because you don't like his personality? I mean, really? There have been other volatile coaches. Buddy Ryan in Philly was a volatile coach. His son Rex, who, has some success, kind of a volatile personality and all. Like, this guy wins. That's what I want from my coach. I mean, I like X's and O's, whatever, but if you're a coach that delegates, you don't know X's and O's. And I'm not saying he doesn't. But you got an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, and every year you get the right guys, and you just run the show?
The guys they got last year, he wasn't allowed to pick.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
I don't care, Nick. Seriously, he is the head coach. They were 4-11, 4-11 the year, or 4-12 before he took over. All right, they won 4 games. The 3 seasons before he took over, they were 22 and not in the 3 seasons. They were 22 and 25. 22 and 25. He gets there immediately. They win 9. They go 9-8 from 4 wins. Then 2 14-win seasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances, 1 Super Bowl win, a shellacking of one of the best teams we've seen.
That was over. Yeah.
Right? And then on top of all that, Jalen Hurts, who when Sirianni took over, people weren't sure he was even a starter in the NFL. And he turns him into an MVP candidate. I mean, and I'm not like a huge Sirianni fan.
Well, it doesn't
I'm
sound
just
like
saying.
it. I mean,
I'm just saying, like,
all right, can I
I'm
ask,
trying to be objective. The dude wins.
Can I ask a question? And this isn't a quiz, I promise. I'm trying to get a gauge. It's 32 coaches in the league.
I knew you were going to do this.
Give me just an idea. I'm not asking where he ranks. I promise.
I'm not
doing
a
that.
Coach
No,
trade.
No, I'm not going to do that. I might do something similar in a minute. But how many elite coach? Like with quarterbacks, like we're like there's so many.
This dude's elite, man.
But are there 12 elite coaches?
No.
Okay.
He is near the top.
All right. So
and I get it. I'm not calling him Sean McVay, who's this genius.
No, I got you.
But there's something he's got that wins.
Here is my. Don't put it up yet, Dust. Personal list of, in order, if I were granted ownership of the 33rd team in the NFL, it's expansion, and it's like, hey,
You get to draft a coach.
you can with the first pick of the expansion draft, you can pick a coach, not a player. Everyone's available. You know what I mean? Like, so here are guys that I would take before I took Sirianni. Okay?
Yeah.
So and I'm curious where you guys disagree. So here's 5 guys. So I would take Andy Reid. I would take Sean McVay. Wilds doesn't like Kyle Shanahan. That's fine.
I might start.
You might like him now because their team's got a soft schedule. I would take Jim Harbaugh. I would take Mike Tomlin. Let me just, even if, rather than parse the individual guys, any of that feel disrespectful to Nick Sirianni? Me having those 5 guys
Not disrespectful. What I say about the Harbaugh and Tomlin that they have over Sirianni is just a much bigger body of work.
Yeah.
Like, you do, I mean, Sirianni's been head coach 4 years.
Yes.
You do want to see more before you can put him ahead of a Tomlin
So there's 5. I've got 5 more.
Okay. I mean, okay.
Uh-huh.
McVay has done some like viral videos that we loved, where it's like, wow, he can recall a play with Peter Schrager. He's got the same hardware as Sirianni.
Yeah,
one appearance
that's
that you
all that
lost,
matters.
and one that you won.
Hold on a second. Wait, can I just say something real quick? It's certainly not all that matters.
Winning?
Doug, hold on. Just the hardware is all. Doug Peterson has a Super Bowl. He just got fired.
Doug Peterson ain't 48-20.
No. I understand. Hold on. So this is where, before I expand the list and make you even angrier, this is where I can get frustrated. Brew, you agree with me. Sean McVay is you use Sean McVay as the example, saying I'm not saying Sirianni is Sean McVay, and now you're saying, well, why is Sirianni not Sean McVay?
What I'm saying.
Well, and I'm going to let this play, but it's also funny, though, because we know without a shadow of a doubt, that Nick thinks that Jalen Hurts is not as great of a quarterback and that Matthew Stafford is definitely better than Jalen Hurts. And Sean McVay won one Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. And Nick Sirianni has then, again, in Nick's eyes, has won a Super Bowl with a lesser quarterback. Wouldn't that be more impressive, though, then, that Sirianni won that Super Bowl? We can understand Kyle Shanahan because he doesn't believe in Brock Purdy or Jimmy Garoppolo. But, still interesting nonetheless. Yeah, interesting.
Is winning. The record is all that matters.
Okay, and I guess what I'm saying
he's done
is,
it with multiple
if I
coordinators.
were picking a head coach, I would not simply say, hey, to my assistant GM, hey, print me off an Excel spreadsheet of their records, and we'll take the one with the best record. I think there is a little more nuance to it. I think you agree by the fact that you said I'm not saying he's Sean McVay. That was your example, not mine.
And I mean also in terms like there are different types of coaches.
Yes, I think
there are different. I don't think Dan Campbell is Sean McVay in a certain sense, but Dan Campbell has proven so far to be a great coach.
I'm glad you said Dan Campbell because he's another one of the coaches I would take over Sirianni. Here's the next 5. I would rather have Kevin O'Connell, Matt LaFleur, Pete Carroll, Dan Campbell, and Sean Payton over Sean McVay. Again. Over Sirianni. I always do that. My apologies. Does that disrespectful? Disrespectful? Is there any name on the list you're like, that is an affront?
Well, what has Matt LaFleur done?
What's Matt LaFleur's winning percentage, Josh? If we're going to do the winning percentage thing, I bet it's within 5 percentage points of Sirianni.
He's had a much better quarterback.
Yeah, he won 13 games every year with Rodgers. They then went back to they went 8 and 9, and then they went back to the playoffs with Jordan Love. I mean, Josh, you can just tell me in my ear. I guarantee he has above a 60% win percentage. 65%. Sirianni is 70%, so it's within 5%, just like I said.
But he's also had a much better quarterback in his prime, Aaron Rodgers. All right, and I'm not look. Yeah, but to me, this doesn't. Pete Carroll, I would question him.
That's Wild's hardware argument. Been to one.
Yeah, but he's had much more coaching, many more chances to win. More than one Super Bowl.
All right.
And Carroll had some bad teams earlier in his career. Peyton has had some bad years. I'm just saying,
but do you actually, so here's my thing. And then I guess
if coaching is sitting, if coaching is taking a written test of X's and O's, and I'm just judging Sirianni from what I see from afar on the X's and O's, then sure, you can put a lot of these guys and maybe some others ahead of him. That's not what coaching is. Coaching is getting your players to play to their maximum ability. That's what it is. And he does it.
So I guess I know he has had great results. I am more so let me ask the last one. Wilds. I have Mike Vrabel there.
Oh no. You can't put Vrabel ahead of him.
Who would you rather have coach the New England Patriots?
Trick question.
It's not a trick question.
Well, Vrabel played for the Patriots, so I got a little bit of a soft spot.
What is the rationale for putting Mike Vrabel ahead of Nick Sirianni?
I think that
vibes. Honestly, it's just a vibe.
No, it's not vibes.
What's wrong with Sirianni's vibes? They win Super Bowl.
It's not just it's not just vibes. This is like the chasing the ghost of assigning credit in professional sports, and are the Eagles is the biggest reason for the Eagles' success Jalen Hurts' leadership, the tush-push, his ability? Is it Saquon's unbelievable year? Is it Howie Roseman's drafting and roster construction? Is it the great head coach? Is it noteworthy to me that there were on this show one football season ago, we all kicked around and said it might be smart for them to fire the guy. And then during last football season, after the 3rd week of the year, we all said, I think they're going to fire the guy. And then they ripped off this unbelievable run. Was that Sirianni getting way better, or was that Jalen Hurts getting to another level and Saquon having what was close to the greatest running back season
Is
ever?
it fair when they go through the supernatural funk? It's like, when the supernatural funk happens, it's not Jason Kelsey's fault, and it's not
Right.
Jalen Hurts' fault.
Where was
It's not
Hurts and
Howie
Kelsey's
Roseman's
leadership
fault.
then?
It really falls on Sirianni. Then when they flip it around and go on a crazy run, well, it's Howie Roseman.
No.
And,
So that's
and-
What
why I
other
don't-
coach in the
that's why-
league do you not give credit for his team's success?
What do you mean?
Like, you apparently don't give Sirianni credit. You give it to the GM.
John
You give it
Harbaugh.
to the players.
John Harbaugh, who was on my honor.
He doesn't get any success, any credit for the
Well,
success?
I give it to overwhelmingly to Lamar, and then to the front office for the draft and the roster. I just picked one out of a guy that I think most of the success goes to, Sean McDermott.
Do you think Harbaugh is a good coach, John Harbaugh?
Yeah, I think he's a good coach.
And Sean McDermott, you don't give him credit either?
No,
I
I
think he
think
doesn't get a
defense?
ton of credit. He's got the third active.
He's a defensive coach. That defense is always good under him, even when they've
He doesn't
lost
get
a
a
lot
ton
of
of
players.
credit, though.
he
doesn't.
doesn't get a ton of
He
credit,
should.
and I think
I thought he could have been fired, to your point about
Yes,
Sirianni.
and-
Because it's not always firing
So-
a guy that's a bad coach. It just might need a different voice
So,
or
but
different culture.
here's I guess the other, to answer your guys' question about the funk. I do think it is instructive if the people who are closer to it than we are clearly had a lot of the same questions about him that we did. They talked about firing him. They wouldn't let him pick his own staff. That happened. So when you're saying does it do anything, does he get any credit for what they did at the end of the year? In my eyes, 100% he got a lot of credit because he went from, in my eyes, a legitimate detriment to them, a bad coach that was hurting them, to now I think he's pretty clearly a good coach. Do I think I would rather have him than any of those 13 names I listed? No. Do I think he's elite, which to me means one of the 5 or 6 best coaches? Absolutely not.
Okay. Honestly, oh man, this is a messy segment to go through because the reality is this is a messy conversation because it's just not that straightforward for so many different reasons. And it's like we talk about this a lot with quarterbacks. We have this conversation a lot when we're talking about Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. And it's like, what quarterback would you rather have? And it's like, well, it depends. What does your team look like? Who's your coach? You can make the argument that with the best coach, Patrick Mahomes would be the best quarterback. But with the worst coach, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen would be the best quarterback to have because of, they can do more physically. If you have a worse O-line or no run game, who would you rather, and still a great coach, who would you rather have? Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson? It's like, probably Lamar Jackson. If you have a great O-line and great wide receiver and a great run game, who would you rather have? Maybe Joe Burrow over all of them because he would, you have a great O-line and a great run game, so you don't need a mobile quarterback. Like it all so much depends on the specific situation. I think it's totally fair to say, you know what, with a great team, no one would be better at running an offense and running a team than Patrick Mahomes over a Josh Allen and a Lamar Jackson. And you guys know that I think Josh Allen is indeed the best. But if you had a less than great team that, a team that, a quarterback that may be more resilient and can do more for his team would maybe be like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So it's just not the same answer every single time. And so with such an elite GM and ownership of the Philadelphia Eagles with Howie Roseman, some of the benefits of some of the coaches that you can have, they fill also, they have a lot of power. They fill very much a GM role as well. Andy Reid absolutely has that. Sean McVay absolutely has that. Harbaugh absolutely has that. Sean Payton absolutely has that. Pete Carroll certainly 100% did, and I believe he probably does with the Raiders as well. And so you don't need that with the Eagles. You don't need that because of who Howie Roseman truly, truly is. And we even know because during Andy Reid's contract when he went to Kansas City, there were the articles written. It's like it's clear he has the power there. He truly has the final say in terms of like what's going on. He's obviously works with ownership and GM, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying that it's just all or nothing here, but it really is, Andy Reid gets tremendous amount of power there. Whereas Dan Campbell does not have the same level of power as Andy Reid. Nick Sirianni does not have the same level of power as, say, Andy Reid or even Sean McVay. And it is fair to say that Nick Sirianni wasn't allowed to hire his coordinators. There was 100% Howie Roseman who went out and got Fangio and Kellen Moore. That's like non-negotiable. So, Nick Sirianni has been a great coach for the Philadelphia Eagles and what they need from him. If the Philadelphia Eagles had Harbaugh, if they had McVay, if they had LaFleur, if they had, even Andy Reid, like, there would be probably too much overlap and it wouldn't be very complimentary. So that's part of it. If we are looking at strictly X's and O's and who's actually calling the plays, first off, that's its own aspect of coaching. That's different than also getting along with your players, which matters. It's more than just being like, oh, hey, we get along. It's like, do you connect to the players? Do you connect? Is there respect? Is there understanding? Are you able to make changes within the team? Not just X's and O's, but within in the structure of a team. Do you know how to run practices? Because it's not just like Brew just said, oh, all about coaching is just about, getting your team ready to play and win. And it's like, that's true, but also like running a team. I just made a Dallas Cowboys video where it's like, where they were talking about Mike McCarthy. And yeah, Mike McCarthy might not be this larger than life elite coach, but no one can deny that he absolutely undeniably knows how to run a team. You're doing so much more than just X's and O's. You need to run practices. You need to run your meetings. Like it's a whole operation that we know plenty of coaches have failed to do. Shane Steichen is, as Eagles fans will know, is an awesome offensive coordinator and play caller. It's not so obvious that he's great at running a team right now. You have players missing meetings and not a lot of respect there. Like it's just, things are different. Shanahan, I think, is an awesome play caller and an awesome offensive mind. It's not clear to me that he knows how to run a team as well as maybe some of these other coaches. So it's like, on the surface, I rather have Shanahan as my play caller and as my offensive mind. But in terms of running a team and making sure that everyone is all buttoned up and ready to go, it's like, I might pick Dan Campbell over that. But I wouldn't say that I'd rather have Dan Campbell over Kyle Shanahan. You understand what I'm saying? So it's just different. There's pros and cons to all of these different coaches. And I've said in one of my previous Sirianni videos, like, I definitely would rather have a true play caller and offensive mind of my team. The person who's truly going to be the number one contact with my franchise quarterback. To me, that gives you the most power. And when it's time to move on from your quarterback, or you need to draft a new quarterback, or you need to trade for a quarterback, whatever it is, it's like, I have nothing but insane confidence that Andy Reid and Sean McVay will be able to guide that. I do not have that same level of confidence with Dan Campbell, Mike Tomlin, Pete Carroll, even Mike Vrabel, DeMeco Ryans, John Harbaugh. I just don't. So it's a tricky conversation. It's really not that straightforward. I reject the whole idea of like, well, how many Super Bowls do you have? What's your win-loss record? This, that. I reject that. The Eagles have clearly built better teams than the Packers have had, the Vikings have had, the Seattle Seahawks. Again, it's hard with Pete Carroll because it's a pretty long stretch. I believe that the Eagles with Sirianni have built better teams than pretty much any of these teams outside of maybe the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, it's hard because the Kansas City Chiefs have gone through many different variations of a team. Nick Sirianni has gone through kind of, especially once 22 hit, like the bulk with Jalen Hurts and AJ and Devontae. Like, I know obviously Saquon wasn't there and Jalen Carter wasn't there, so it's like it's not 100% equal. But you know, still having Lane Johnson, Mailata, like it's, you know, you lose Kelsey, so it's that's why it's incomplete comparisons here, quite frankly. It's like, you know, I don't know. And that is why someone like a Sean McVay and an Andy Reid and even a Kyle Shanahan and a Harbaugh for that matter, you know, they do deserve a ton of credit because, like, Andy Reid went to 5 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. He led the Kansas City Chiefs to you know, to win the division, I think, for the first time in their history in back-to-back seasons with Alex Smith, right? And people are, oh, well, you couldn't win. And it's like, you know, you think he's going to be able to beat quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger, Andrew Luck, and Tom Brady with Alex Smith? Like, what are we saying here? It's so dumb. And Andy Reid was supposed to try to figure out a way how to win, you know, against Kurt Warner, with again, you know, quarterbacks who were way beyond their prime, or Donovan McNabb, who was like both kind of good, both kind of not, throwing 19 interceptions in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. And quite frankly, he still hasn't even beaten Tom Brady with Patrick Mahomes. So it's just like, you know, it's tough here, man. It's tough. And again, you can't just go by wins, losses. You can't just go by Super Bowls. Like, you have to look at the complete picture here. And the reality is that I do think Andy Reid and Sean McVay, for that matter, and Harbaugh to a degree, those coaches probably deserve more credit for the teams that they've built and how they've been able to build them. And I do think it's wildly impressive that Shanahan was able to get to 2 Super Bowls, one with Jimmy Garoppolo, one with Brock Purdy. I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. I really do. Sean McVay getting to 2 Super Bowls with 2 completely different quarterbacks. Andy Reid getting to 2 Super Bowls. I mean, obviously he went to many Super Bowls, but specifically he got 2 different quarterbacks to the Super Bowl and went to 5 NFC championship games. And, you know, that speaks for itself from my point. Before you really start talking about Sirianni being this next level special, it's like, I would have to see him continue to be great without Jalen Hurts, right? I want to see him with a new quarterback, this, that, and third. But if you're an Eagles fan, this is where it's always so interesting to me, because if you're an Eagles fan, then my real take is, and it doesn't matter, and I don't care, because all I do is care about, all you should care about is how great are you with how things are now. It's like people say, oh, well, how good would Brock Purdy be without Kyle Shanahan? And I say to 49ers fans, your answer should be, it doesn't matter. I only need him to be great with Kyle Shanahan. That's all I need him to be. And the thing is the way how we ever transcend or go above that conversation is if we're now trying to have the GOAT conversation, which is why I think it's fair to have that conversation about Andy Reid and Mahomes and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. It's like, no, we're trying to figure out, like, are you truly the GOAT? So now we have to really zoom in. What would Patrick Mahomes look like without Andy Reid? What did Andy Reid look like without Patrick Mahomes? What about Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, etc., etc.? So I think that's fair. But if you're an Eagles fan and you're like, oh, well, Sirianni, what would he look like if he was, coaching for another team? And it's like, it doesn't matter. But we do know, and this is why you can't give all the credit to Sirianni. Yeah, he took over a team that wasn't doing well, and now they're doing well, and they won the Super Bowl. But, like, the Eagles have the second, I've said this so many times recently, the Eagles have the second most playoff wins since 2000. Okay? And they're second to only the New England Patriots, who, again, at this point, you can't even count the Patriots. They had 30 playoff wins since 2000 with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. And the Eagles have 20. And the next closest is like 18. So the way how I really look at it is the Eagles are actually the number one, because Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are such insane outliers. It's like, it doesn't even count. They also got to feast on a terrible division for years. But that doesn't matter. So the Eagles are just such an incredibly well-run franchise that Nick Sirianni gets to take advantage of. And again, I'm not knocking him for it. I'm really not. The Kansas City Chiefs were not that when Andy Reid got there. The Los Angeles Rams were not that with Sean McVay. They just weren't. 49ers, it's kind of a toss-up to a degree. It depends on, like, what timeline you want to use here. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's so interesting to have some of these conversations. Ready to call Nick Sirianni elite, or just, if we look at this list, what are the other coaches you have? I mean, if I was starting a franchise from brand new and I didn't know who my GM was, I didn't know who my coach was, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's like, I'd say, yeah, I want Sean McVay and Andy Reid. Those to me are the two best coaches. And I know Eagles fans are like, oh, and Sirianni's beating Sean McVay, and it's like, I don't care about that, honestly. I really don't. I don't use head to head in any aspect. Head to head quarterback, head to head. Like, it could be fun to look at and stuff, but you got to play it both sides then. And it's just not always what I think is matters. But if you're saying I have an awesome team with an awesome GM and great coordinators, who do I want to be my coach? It's not so clear to me that you should be having Harbaugh, Sean Payton, Dan Campbell, Pete Carroll, Matt LaFleur, Kevin O'Connell, et cetera, over a Nick Sirianni. Just like what I made the exact same example with the quarterbacks. I do believe Lamar Jackson can do more than Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position. I do believe Joe Burrow has a better arm than Jalen Hurts. It is not clear to me that if you give all three quarterbacks great coaches and great teams, that you're going to say that Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow are going to put their team in a position to win the Super Bowl more so than Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts has proven now to be an absolute elite big game player and can run that offense in the big moments flawlessly and steps up in the biggest moments. And he's done it twice. Something that we have never seen Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow do. And that's just a fact. So that's why this conversation gets complicated, and it's just, that's why I think using the quarterback comparisons are kind of perfect, kind of brothers and sisters to this level of conversation. It's not just that cut and dry, quite frankly. It's really not. I think Joe Burrow is an elite, and just, I mean, like, if you really look at what he's done, if you really want to be a stat junkie, look at his stats with pressure. I mean, like, he actually has one of the most gifted arms you could ever imagine. And the types of throws that he can make and how he's able to pick apart defenses with his arm is truly special. The problem is, you give him a banged up O-line and an inconsistent run game, he can really struggle to make up that difference, okay? Whereas we know other quarterbacks with a little bit more versatility, a little bit more mobility, can put their teams maybe in a position to win better, more consistently. It's a complicated conversation, and it is like that with coaching. But again, to really boil this down, the Eagles did not let Sirianni pick his coordinators. This is a franchise winning business enterprise. Like, it's an operation. Okay, you do not reduce. I very much reduce the Kansas City Chiefs' success to Andy Reid, Spags, Patrick Mahomes. As long as you got those three pieces, there's going to be something there. There's going to be something there. Okay, the Chargers right now, they're only going to be competent as long as Harbaugh is there. Right? This offense can only operate with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay. We know that is not the case with the Philadelphia Eagles. We know that because within the last 8 years, they literally won a Super Bowl with a completely different coach and a completely different quarterback. So you can say with such a higher degree of confidence that if the Eagles got rid of Jalen Hurts, if you said the Chiefs, the Rams, the 49ers, the Chargers, the Steelers, like, go through all of these teams with all of these coaches. If you said they got rid of their quarterbacks and their coaches, including the Eagles now, which team is more likely to build a team and to build a coach and a quarterback combo that will lead them to another Super Bowl? The only answer is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're the only ones that have shown to be able to truly do it. Not the Steelers, not the Chargers, not the 49ers, not the Rams, not the Chiefs, not the Vikings, not the Packers, not the Raiders, none of it. None of it. No franchise. And especially, I mean, of course, if you look on a long enough timeline of a 30-year window, of course, well, that's not what we're talking about here. Just use the last 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, whatever real window you want to use. Unless you're, get beyond going back to like 1980, because then, of course, you're going to find teams that won with different coaches and quarterbacks. So that is why Sirianni will get less credit. But it doesn't mean that he's not a great coach. Doesn't mean that he's not a big part of why the Eagles have won. It doesn't mean that he's not worthy of praise. It doesn't mean that you should automatically pick these other coaches ahead of him. It just means that the conversation is nuanced. And again, if you're an Eagles fan watching this, at the end of the day, you should just feel more confident about your franchise, about your team, because it is infinitely more resilient than any of those teams right there have shown. Nick Wright himself admitted that when Andy Reid and Mahomes are gone, he's like, this team will collapse. He goes, I have no confidence that the Kansas City Chiefs will be able to get another great quarterback and another great head coach. He's like, he admitted that. He admitted that like at the end of last season, I think, or, maybe it was in like March or time, like, whatever it was. But like, he absolutely admitted that 100%. If Sean McVay retired, as he was like whispered to want to do so, and then Stafford retires, you're like, what are the Rams going to do? I don't know. 49ers, the Chargers, without Justin Herbert, without Harbaugh, who are they? Who are all of these teams? They're nowhere. Even with some of their coaches, they've been nothing for the last 10 years. The Steelers. So, yeah, it's a complicated conversation. I'm for it, but I think it's hard to really convey the accurate nuance of this. I think it's one of those rare takes. I was getting kind of anxious, and I'm going to end it here because, look, this is already a 32-minute video. I was getting anxious watching this because I was thinking to myself, oh, man, this is such a messy conversation that it's just really, really hard to accurately portray what, like, the reality of this conversation actually is. I mean, like, you could practically do like a PhD on this. Like, what is it? What do you need from a coach? What makes a great coach? Like, and that's why I hate the platitudes of like, the number one job of a coach is to get your team ready to play and you gotta win. And it's like, yeah, that's fine. But like, Sean McVay didn't win a Super Bowl until Stafford got there. Stafford, on the flip side, couldn't win a playoff game. And then year one, he wins 4, including a Super Bowl. And even beats Tom Brady, if memory serves me correctly, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it's just like, it's complicated. You talk about Mike Tomlin being so great, never a losing season, etc., and yet they haven't won a playoff game in nearly a decade. It's all about wins and losses and hardware and this, that. Well, Harbaugh hasn't won one. Kyle Shanahan hasn't won one. Pete Carroll arguably made one of the biggest mistakes in the Super Bowl history, which helped give Tom Brady an extra Super Bowl win that you could easily take away from him. Shanahan gets blamed for why Tom Brady was able to come back against the Falcons. John Middlecoff rips Kevin O'Connell for that loss against the Rams and said, wake me up when he does anything. He says Kyle Shanahan literally has gone to 2 Super Bowls with Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. So give me a break with Kevin O'Connell. So it's just, Pete Carroll went to 2 Super Bowls. Won 1, lost 1. Since then, what had he really done when really push comes to shove? Drew Brees, we say, is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. One of the most accurate quarterbacks of all time. Sean Payton won 1 Super Bowl with said quarterback. And I think Sean Payton's great. I think Pete Carroll's great. Like, it's Stuff's hard. And it's just messy. But those are just my thoughts. I hope any of that made sense. Let me know in the comments below. What do you guys all think? I encourage you all to try to unpack this and comment as nuanced as you possibly can, and not just automatically say, Sirianni's trash, it's all the Eagles team, or Sirianni's elite. Of course he is. 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Like, I encourage you guys to try to, like, I don't know, just look at it from a 360 degrees. It's messy. Again, it's messy. The comment section, I feel like in this video is going to be messy. And again, this turned into a 35-minute video, one of my longest videos ever. Like, that's how messy it is from my viewpoint. So, but let me know. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.